Steve, good morning.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
My pleasure, man. Thanks as always for joining us. Personally for you, how did it feel to watch the Bills clinch a playoff spot last Sunday?
Well, I think it was pretty cool for everybody. Even if you're not a Bills fan, you got to appreciate the way it happened. They've been out of the playoffs for 17 years, and then to have them do what they had to do on the last weekend of the season and win against the Miami Dolphins, which has always been a rivalry game for Buffalo, and then the late finish of the Cincinnati and Baltimore game, where not only were all the fans around the Bills fans around the country and around the world were watching the end of the Cincinnati and Ravens game, but then to have the team also go out on social media, and all those videos came out of everybody finding out at the exact same time and watching Andy Dalton throw the touchdown pass to Boyd late and win it, and everybody found out that the Buffalo Bills were back in the playoffs at the exact same moment, and that was pretty cool. And, see the Bills fans rise up and raise $250,000 to thank Andy Dalton through his foundation says a lot about what that fan base thinks about their football team.
So tell me how we got here, because before the season, the Bills had traded away Sammy Watkins. They had let go of Robert Woods. They had ended up looking like they were kind of playing for the future. And this year was a bit of a, okay, let's punt and play for 2018. Instead, they end up breaking the drought. How did this happen for the Bills this year?
Well, I think they got off to a fast start and an unexpectedly fast start, and they did it by churning out a ton of turnovers in the first 7 games. They went to a 5-2 mark, strictly on the back of a plus 17 turnover ratio. In fact, they got there so much on those the defensive turnovers, and really the only thing the offense did was they just didn't turn it over. Tyrod Taylor scored just enough points. He never throws for over 200 yards, let alone 300 yards. They stay on the football field, don't turn it over. They play field position, and the defense was churning out turnovers. And Stephen Hauschka, free agent kicker from the Seattle Seahawks last year, came in and never missed and set an NFL record for 13 straight 50-plus yard field goals. And all of a sudden, they get to 5-2, and that's so they felt like at that point, if we can just get any spark at all in our offense, we're going to be tough to beat. And that's when they made the quarterback switch to Nathan Peterman, and he exploded in their face. They went right back to Tyrod Taylor after 1.5, and really the quality of the players and the philosophy, the type of players they got, carried them through to the end of the season. They got enough out of the rest of their players to hang in there and win enough games. Their running game after the bye week, they tweaked it a little bit, got it back on track, and they put enough pieces together to squeak out enough games. Plus, let's face it, they got some help for an AFC team that after you get past the Patriots and the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's a little bit of a toss-up in the conference. So they got a little bit of help there. And here they are after 17 years back in the playoffs for all those reasons.
Steve Tasker joins us from the NFL on CBS. The other AFC game is going to be the first game of the weekend on Saturday afternoon. Titans in Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Do you believe that Alex Smith, with a good run of the playoffs, would come back to be the starter next year in Kansas City?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's hard to get rid of a quarterback who's giving you that, just like it would be here in Buffalo if the Bills make a run at it. But Alex Smith's track record is he is what he is, no question. Every quarterback has their limitations, and I think if you can live with Alex Smith's limitations and build around him and do the right things to do it, just like every other quarterback of that ilk, he gives you more than enough to go the distance. And there's no question you have to really put some assets into the defensive side of your football and give him some speed guys outside to make it possible. But I would say that I don't think that the Kansas City Chiefs would feel like they're in a position to kick him to the curb anytime soon. But nevertheless, if it goes the other way, if they embarrass themselves and are one and done in the postseason at home against a Tennessee Titan team that barely got in, yeah, there might be a big outrage to say, hey, we've got to make a change to get to that final step and get deep in the playoffs and give ourselves a chance. So I think it is on the table for Alex Smith, but I think for the most part it's leaning towards he'll probably be back there next year.
You've done a number of Titan games since they drafted Marcus Mariota, and there's been plenty of Titans fans that have been frustrated because they see some greatness out of Mariota, then sometimes they don't. Do you think that's more about Mariota's growth individually, or do you think that has to do with the offense, maybe too predictable that they have built around Marcus?
Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit of both. I don't know that Marcus Mariota is the greatest of all time who's being held back by a bad coaching staff. I do think he could be more productive than he is, and I think at times he shows the ability that maybe it's in there somewhere. But I also think that the club is doing a lot of things to do that they think can win them football games with the roster they have now. I mean, they got a couple of big running backs. They've got a great tight end. I don't know if they've got a great big number one receiver or two receivers that they think they can stretch the field and let him drop back and throw it all over. I think they've got to do it the way they got to do it with the people that are around him now. And I think he's got to realize that as well and make the most of it while he can. Now, if they choose to change their philosophy and go outside with their offense, start to put it up, down the football field, I think that will, see what then you can start to look at Marcus Mariota and say, hey, you've got to play better. But for the time being, he's doing more than what they ask him to do. No question that I think there's more in his tank and other areas of his skill set that they don't exploit, but I don't know that it's them overlooking those skill sets as much as trying to win games with the other guys on the roster that they have at the moment.
Steve Tasker, former Buffalo Bills All-Pro, current analyst for the NFL on CBS. And this weekend, CBS has one of the wild card games, Bills and Jaguars, Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Bills and Jags from Jacksonville. Bills being, of course, Steve's old team. Steve, it's always fun to catch up, man. Happy New Year to you, and thanks so much for helping us out throughout the entire football season.
Happy 2018 to you. Thanks for having me on.
Steve Tasker joining us this morning here on the DA Show.